to So That Reminds Me, Reminder Publishing's usually bi-weekly podcast discussing Western Mass news. I'm Payton North.
And I'm Dennis Hackett.
And we'll be your hosts for today's episode.
For this week's episode, we have something a little different planned. As we mentioned last week, we are taking the show on the road this week to the Hampden County Sheriff's Picnic in a special episode.
Yes, today we are going to be speaking to a variety of elected officials and challengers from Western Mass to get their thoughts on issues facing the region this election season, including curbing violence in the area, work these officials have done, as well as their goals and thoughts on some of the ballot questions this year.
For the format of these interviews, Peyton and I will be switching off, talking to each of the interviewees to hear both of us asking questions to as many people as we can. Each candidate or elected official will be asked 2 questions.
This is kind of one of those see and be seen events that happens in the area. It's like, I almost equate it to, well, there is a golf component. I was going to say I almost equate it to going to the country club. You know, you're there, you're kind of networking a little bit, but there is a golf component. They do play golf in the morning, and then everybody heads over to the picnic, which is at the Elks Club on Tiffany Street in Springfield. But yeah, I mean, like I said, it's see and be seen around here. If you're running for election, this is the place to be. Everyone's there. You shake hands. They have Media Row, that's where we'll be sitting. And everyone has to walk by Media Row in order to go and get their hot dogs, hamburgers, and beer. So that's when the media has the opportunity to pull some people aside, reel them in, and ask the important questions that they either may not be answering right away for us or maybe trying to dodge. It really allows us the opportunity to do our jobs and put people on the spot. And of course, it also gives them the ability to, get their names out there even more and talk to the media. So it's exciting. It's always, I said exciting. I've been trying to not say exciting, but it is exciting. It's nice. It's a nice event, and this year is going to be great because it's going to be only 70 degrees.
Yep, I am. That is the best part about this. For those who don't know, every single year, obviously it's August, so it's hot and humid and gross. But today, nope, we are thriving with
easy breezy
early fall weather.
Oh my gosh, I'm excited for that. That's why I am so high energy right now, because I know we're not going to be sitting there sweating our butts off like we normally do. So this is going to be a great day. We're going to have fun.
Definitely excited to grab a hot dog or a hamburger or something too.
Oh, absolutely. I'm not packing a lunch.
I didn't either.
We've got lunch ahead of us for sure. And Rob Rizzuto is always really great about that, encouraging everyone in the media to go up, get some food, because we are there working, but we also are there networking as well. So, with the formalities out of the way, let's get started with our first interview after a few short messages.
Would you like to put your products and services before more than 2,500 potential customers in just one day? That's what a booth at the Prime Living Senior Expo can do for your business. If your goal is connecting with consumers age 50 plus, let the Prime Living Senior Expo help you reach this exploding market. To book your space for September 8th from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. in MGM's Aria Ballroom, contact your sales representative or visit primelifeexpo.com.
Small businesses are the heartbeat of our communities, and at the first annual Go Local Marketplace, over 20 local makers will be bringing what they do best to brew practitioners for all to enjoy. From food trucks to live music and more, Go Local Marketplace will be your place to shop small with friends and family in tow. Go Local Marketplace will take place on Saturday, October 5th from 1 to 5 p.m. at Brew Practitioners in East Longmeadow. Parking and admission to the event is free. Bring your friends and family to Go Local Marketplace and enjoy the best of what our small business community has to offer.
All right, and we're back with our first interview at the Sheriff's Picnic today.
Thank you so much, Sheriff Cocchi, for having us here today and being our first guest on the podcast, our first special guest.
Well, it's an honor to be here.
Yeah, this is always one of our favorite events every year, get out in the community and meet everyone. So I just have a couple questions for you. So first, just to get right into it, what steps are being taken to curb crime and violence in Hampden County? That's at the top of everyone's mind, of course, especially as we're here today at your picnic.
Well, I think first and foremost, the district attorney and the local police departments are doing a great job in presence. And the district attorney is taking all the cases that are coming in front of him extremely serious. There's a lot of violent crime still happening. People will tell you statistically crime is down. That may be the case number-wise, but the number of shootings and gun trafficking and selling of drugs and trafficking drugs is not down. And when we look at the amount of weapons that are being shot in Springfield and Holyoke, West Springfield, Chicopee, it only leads to negative things that can happen and leaving victims in our community. So I think it's important when we talk about crime and we talk about people going to jail and we talk about rehabilitative services for the people that come to jail, we got to also in the discussion have the conversation of the word victim. We cannot forget about victims. They cannot be invisible. You know, I almost feel sometimes in today's day and age that victims are invisible and the criminal acts are now becoming the victims, and I just don't see that. It's our obligation as public officials and as law enforcement officials to protect the community, and that means putting people back to the community out of jail that are more productive and more likely to be law-abiding citizens, but it also means not forgetting the victims that are in the community and making sure that that they feel that justice has been served and that they're safe to continue on in their life without being victimized any further.
Absolutely. And do you believe that the state needs to rework police reform or bail reform?
I absolutely believe in reform, but I believe that reform has to be looked at and you have to work out what's working and what needs to be tweaked. Right now, I am very frustrated with the bails that are being set and the amount of people that are returning to the communities with what I would consider violent crimes, gun charges, and they're back out within 24 hours. What precedent are we setting with the community? Where are you going to be removed from society when you're exhibiting poor behavior and dangerous behavior to the point where you can at least have a timeout and think about the actions you're doing? When we're opening the door and letting people out within 24 hours, there's no consequence. And if you don't have consequences, you're not going to have corrected or a change of behavior. And I think that that's very difficult for me as a law enforcement official to sit back and watch people walk in and out of my correctional center with nothing better to better them and making better decisions. They're just coming in, staying for 12 to 24 hours, and they're back in the community. We had no chance to do anything for them. So they're going back to the same element, the same group of friends that they were hanging out with. They're going to start the same old, criminogenic behaviors. So I do think that it has to be tweaked. They should be asking the practitioners of criminal justice reform. They should be talking to the sheriffs, talking to the police chiefs, talking to the district attorneys, talking to the judges, and talking to the victims. If they would talk to the victims and see exactly how they're feeling and how the lack of support they're feeling, I think we can do a better job in trying to accomplish all of our goals and being progressive in exercising good reform, but doing it in a way that it's safe and it's healthy for everybody.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much. I won't take up any more of your time. I know you've got a line of people who want to speak with you, but we really appreciate being here today and for coming on the podcast.
Well, thank you for having me, and thanks for being here.
Thank you so much for coming and sitting with us today. We have the Secretary of the Commonwealth, Bill Galvin, with us, and I know we're short on time, so I'm just going to ask you one question. With concerns over the integrity of our elections, how can you reassure voters that elections will be free and fair?
Well, I think with the record we've proven here in Massachusetts, we've had record turnouts in the last 3 presidential elections, and despite the fact that we have, not despite, but because we have very easy recount laws, if there are any questions, there's an opportunity to do that. We've never had a question. We've never had a challenge because I think voters have confidence in the integrity of the process. So, for instance, with voter by mail, which we've pioneered here really over the last 4 years, we know the local clerks handle it. So it's local election officials who are, in many cases, elected themselves locally. We know that we have every ballot bar-coded, so we're able to track it and trace it. Voters individually can look at their own ballot when it's received back in the office. We know that we have a requirement of a match of a signature on each ballot as it comes back, so we're able to compare the signatures if there's a question. In the case of people who vote in person, every ballot in Massachusetts is a paper ballot. We do not have any others. We never have had any others. We will not have any others as long as I'm around. And so with that having been said, voters can look at the ballot and know and see their choice. They themselves put it into the ballot box. And as I said earlier, we have very easy recount laws. If there is a close race, and sometimes in local elections in particular, you do have those kinds of races, they can ask for a hand count so the candidates themselves can see each ballot as it's counted. So I think that's the types of assurance we give people. We take elections very, very seriously. Whenever we've had instances where people have attempted, and it's been very rare, but it has happened, to do things that are illegal or criminal, we don't take it lightly. I've referred multiple cases for criminal prosecution, and people have actually gone to jail because of that. So I think that record is what people can look at confidently about making sure that when they vote, they know their vote's going to get counted.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for sitting down with us today. It's our first day taking the podcast on the road, so I appreciate.
I'd like to mention quickly, as we have our state primary coming up on September 3rd, and this time, for the first time, there is mandated early voting in-person opportunities at every city and town over this coming weekend. So voters will have the opportunity, should they choose to vote on Saturday or Sunday in their respective community. If they go to my official website, they can see the locations and the times, because the times will vary a little bit and the locations will vary. But I think, again, it's another opportunity for voters to vote in person. If they don't want to entrust their ballot to the mail, they can actually give it back to the election officials at that point to make sure it gets counted. And, of course, our polls will be open on September 3rd from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. statewide. I should also tell you that the general election is approaching quickly, and there will be another mailing going out for that to allow people to vote by mail should they choose to. There'll also be the opportunity for people to consider the ballot questions. There will be 5 ballot questions on the November binding questions. They'll be getting a booklet in the mail, every voter, showing the questions, explaining the questions, and giving people the opportunity to consider what they want to do. So there's a lot of action coming up between now and November 5th. I would only ask that if people have moved or they've changed their status, they should check their voter registration status now to make sure they'll be eligible to participate on November 5th.
Absolutely. Great advice.
Great.
Thank you so much. It's going to be an exciting fall.
Thank you.
All right, we are here with Bridget Matthews-Kane, who is running for the 4th Hampden District State Rep seat. So we just have a couple of questions for you. So first, what's the top issue that residents of Westfield and Southampton are talking to you about on the campaign trail? What would you do as their legislator to address this issue?
Okay, so I've knocked on almost 1,000 doors at this point, and by far the number one issue has been affordability. When I was running for the Westfield City Council 5 years ago, that topic actually never came up, and I'm hearing it with increasing frequency. Housing costs are going up, inflation's really hitting people's pocketbooks, and medical costs are another issue that I'm heard on the trail as well.
Okay. And then what can a first-term legislator hope to accomplish on Beacon Hill? What are your realistic goals for policies or budget priorities you could pass in your first 2 years?
So I think the secret to that will be finding partners who want to work with me on issues that we agree on and leveraging their experience to make sure what needs to happen for Western Massachusetts happens.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
Before we move forward with any more interviews, we are going to take a quick break.
Since the founding of Reminder Publishing over 60 years ago, The Reminder has brought local businesses together with their customers through our advertising and coverage. Over the past 4 years, The Reminder has been adding to its reporting and expanding our readership, while other newspapers in the region, state, and country have scaled back or closed. We want local community journalism to thrive and grow, and are asking our readers and listeners to support and participate. The Reminder Press Club's mission is to ensure that local journalism is sustainable and leading healthy community discussions. The Reminder Press Club is a way for you to support the crucial work of professional reporters covering the vital stories in our community. Learn more about the Reminder Press Club or join at reminderpressclub.com. We get it. You're busy, but you want to be connected to your local community. If you're not reading The Reminder, Western Mass's free weekly newspaper, you're missing out on the heartbeat of your town. Stay in the loop with all the latest buzz, from local stories to community updates and exciting events. It's all in The Reminder. Just log on to thereminder.com and dive into the hometown news you love. To subscribe to receive The Reminder at your home, call 413-788-1316. Don't miss a beat. Your town, your stories, your community for over 60 years. The Reminder. We are hometown news.
And we're back with some more interviews from our day at the Sheriff's Picnic.
All right, we are here now with State Senator Adam Gomez, who is running for re-election. What do you feel you can accomplish in your next term that you have yet to do, and what has kind of stood in the way of those goals so far?
Well, what's sitting in the front of me is obviously a campaign. Democracy is alive and well. Once we get past September 3rd, I think that one thing we want to accomplish is getting our economic development bond bill done. I know that has been kind of in question. But, moving forward, there's a lot of work that needs to happen, even though we have implemented and passed the housing bond bill. We have the maternal health bill that just passed just so recently, an informal. Legislatively, I have a net zero bill, especially very environmental friendly, environmental centric. But just trying to make sure that what we've been able to legislate this year absolutely does what it's the pieces of legislation say they're going to do. Mm-hmm. And I'm just looking forward to after this election, because with every challenge you have to reset and go back and talk to the community and see what are things that you can do better. Yeah. And if there is anything that I have to do better, but more I'm just looking forward to just entering my third term. And there's a lot of in my chairmanship now that I sit in on the cannabis policy. We have a lot of controversy within the Cannabis Control Commission, specifically with the economic development footprint of what that looks like, and keeping that industry steady, because it's a $7 billion industry that money directly impacts the footprint of economic development within the Commonwealth. So I want to make sure that that industry, whatever impacts they are, that legislatively we can make some of those transitions and changes, and then be able to support our cannabis control commissioners to be able to move also policy that they have forward, unless we don't have to do anything legislatively. But, it goes back to food insecurity, it goes back to housing. It goes back to making sure that Western Mass gets its fair share, and making sure that we're still on the temperature of when it comes to healthcare and east to west rail. Those are things that we're looking forward to. Specific Springfield centric, we're still moving along with our new Hall of Justice, and we're exactly where it's going to be. So, there's a great work and great things happening, and me being a part of what's happening now, we have to keep on pushing towards the future and making sure that we don't miss a step. So I encourage folks to continue, regardless if it's for me or for whoever. If they're on the ballot and that's that's the person that you want to support, vote by mail, vote early, and vote on September 3rd. And then from there, we have to continue pushing on and make sure that we elect Kamala Harris as our new president of the United States of America.
Sounds good. And then what can be done to curb crime and violence in Springfield, which has seen record rates in recent years?
Well, historically, we haven't seen this type of crime in Springfield in quite a while. Statistically, I represent possibly the most dangerous district, but I just want to be able to support our police with every single thing that we can. If it was resources, I'm one of the main sponsors for our community policing unit that's called C3, which we've been able to curb violence in that way, involved with making sure that our police relationships are intact with our community. So we have a North End C3 where it started. We have Mason Square C3, East Forest Park C3, and then we have one that got transitioned into like the South End C3 that we've expanded into Chicopee. So we have one in Willimantic and one in Chicopee Center, which is I think kind of a model that we can able to reach the masses. And obviously we just passed a monumental gun bill to try to really have the conversation about gun violence, but at the same time, how are these individuals, by tracking and tracing, are getting these weapons and being able to modify them through switches or through extended clips, and making 3D printing and that magnitude in that industry illegal.
And then you signed onto the Thrive Act, which would remove passing the MCAS from the list of requirements to graduate high school. Without a codified test for students statewide, is there a concern that school district flexibility will lead to students slipping through the cracks or graduating with bare minimum of comprehension?
No, I don't think so, because just because the MCAS, if it's passed by the Commonwealth, maybe really is in question. It's just the option of it not being a requirement. We're very pro assessment.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure that every single year, maybe it's the same model after the test taking, is making sure that our teachers are doing their due diligence, especially with our students. We don't want to skip a beat on assessing our students, but essentially we don't want to give our students the anxiety of thinking that they have to pass this one monumental test to be able to get past 12 years of hard, rigorous work. Individuals learn different, they take tests different, and we see that the impacts of these individuals that take these tests are within gateway cities and rural districts that necessarily have that lack of funding. That's why we're very proud to be able to institute fully funding public education in the last two sessions. But then now the Senate has been able to put forth also free community college, which essentially the free word means that it's basically a subsidized for individuals that don't qualify for FAFSA, but individuals can go to school, and we know that burden of having loans that become outrageous for some of these families and individuals that want to further their education or further their careers.
All right, sounds good. That's all we got for you. Thanks for taking the time
All
to
right,
sit down
cool.
with us.
Thanks. My
Thank
pleasure
you.
to meet you guys.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming and sitting down with us. We have Malo Brown here today. He is running for he is a city councilor. I almost just said you are running for city council. You are not. You are running for state senate. So thank you for joining us. Just a couple of questions. So what are some of the goals in legislation that you have for your first term?
Well, I really want to start donating to more grassroots organizations out there. The big corporations and the big companies and the big people out there, they're getting the bulk of our money. I want to be able at least to skim some of that off, and it'll be enough, I think, to impact some of the mom and pop, the startup companies, people who might even want to get into journalism and start up anything they might want to start up.
Yeah, absolutely. And what can be done to curb crime and violence in Springfield, which has seen record rates in recent years?
Honestly, I don't think a lot of people would want to hear what I would say about it. I think we should bring God back into the church. A lot of people, we took God back into the school, We took it out of the school a long time ago. And I don't really care what a person, who they pray to or whatever, but they should have some moral compass of having a fear of some God. And I believe that that's taken away from us. A lot of times when we were growing up, we had to go to church. You know, it was something we had to do. Nowadays, you go to the churches are empty when it comes to the youth. So I think that would be something I would want to bring back to help curb violence. At a young age, you start a kid up as far as understanding and having a fear of God. And then by the time they get older, they'll understand kind of how to map out some of those struggles.
Absolutely. And what is your response to the ongoing ethics investigation regarding your campaign?
I think it's kind of flattering, maybe. I mean, I'm just a little old city councilor. I think I was taken lightly, and a lot of people in the community, they respect the work that I've done. I've done the work. So now it's time to take on bigger challenges. When you can't beat a person, you smear them. So I'm honored that a little city councilor from the inner city is having a state senator follow him around, taking pictures of his T-shirt on his day off.
Well, thank you so much for joining us. I really appreciate it, and good luck.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Senator Oliveira, for joining us here today. It's our inaugural podcast that we've taken it out on the street, so I'm excited to have you. We won't take up too much of your time, but I just have a couple of questions. So you've recently been working on a petition accompanied by a bill on legislation to protect survivors of spousal abuse from alimony liability. Could you tell our listeners a little bit more about that?
Well, first of all, it's an honor to be here on your first kind of inaugural podcast, going outside of a studio and being here as an avid podcast listener. I'm looking forward to subscribing and listening. So congratulations on that launch. But the alimony protection bill that I have filed in the legislature, which was actually a late bill filing, so it happened mid-session. So a lot of times when you file legislation mid-session, usually takes until the next session in order to get a committee hearing and get it through the process, was actually based on a piece of legislation that was signed into law just to our south of us in Connecticut. It was also signed into law in California and is actually pending in New Jersey. And so for many years, it's been assumed that that victims of domestic violence tend to be not the breadwinners in the family and tend to get alimony payments from their spouse or the person who has inflicted a awful spousal abuse on themselves. And so what this bill does is that we're seeing a lot of victims of violent crimes from their spouses who are the breadwinners in their families and are now subjected, without this protection, of paying alimony to the spouse that victimized them, which is just leading to further victimization. And so ensuring that our laws are updated in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts to protect victims of violent crimes, which we already have strong laws in Massachusetts protecting victims of violent crimes. This takes it a step further, not only protecting their physical well-being, but also protecting their financial well-being.
Wow, that's amazing, and obviously so needed. That's incredible. Moving on, you've signed into the Thrive Act, which would remove passing MCAS from the list of requirements to graduate high school. Without a codified test for students statewide, is there a concern that the school district flexibility will lead to students slipping through the cracks of graduating with the bare minimum comprehension?
Well, as a former school committee member for 12 years, and also the second class to ever have MCAS as a graduation requirement, as a member of the class of 2004, celebrating my 20th reunion for my high school graduation, a high-stakes test really shows a couple things about a district. It shows the income level and the level of poverty of a district, and doesn't show the actual growth in student performance. And I think there's been a lot of misinformation about the high-stakes MCAS test that's been put out there. We are the last state, the only state in the country that has a single test determining whether or not you can graduate from high school. We are well out of the norms out of the other 49 states in the country, and removing this requirement is essential to allow assessments done at the local level and allowing assessments to be done where you can capture the totality of student learning. A high-stakes, one-time test is not something that captures student achievement, student learning, and certainly should not be used as punishment to a school district for their performance by one test. And so that's all that the Thrive Act does, and I'm proud to say that we've been working closely with partners in the legislature to ensure that there are proper district-based assessments where communities and school districts can assess their students on the totality of their work, not a one high-stakes test that's out there. And that's exactly what the ballot question will do, and I'm proud to be voting in support of removing MCAS as a graduation requirement so we can allow flexibility to our educators, to our families, and to our students.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for sitting down with us today. I certainly
not a problem.
appreciate it.
Anytime.
And it's nice to see you here.
Absolutely. Enjoy the weather. The weather is perfect this year. It's probably the best that we've had for a sheriff's picnic.
Normally we're sitting here sweating. We've got
I know, and I actually put on a vest today. I'm a little chilly, so... Yeah, well, it was nice seeing you, and thank you for having me on the podcast.
Thank you so much.
Yeah,
this is great.
Care.
Yeah.
All right, we are here with Holyoke Mayor Joshua Garcia. So we just have 3 quick questions for you. How important do you think it is that the upcoming CPA ballot question passes, and will the surcharge reduction from 1.5% to 1% have a significant impact on the city?
So, personally speaking, Joshua Garcia and how I think and feel about the CPA, I'm in full support of CPA. Considering that the impacts it has had in our community, it definitely offers flexibility to tackle projects that municipalities don't normally have the flexibility to tackle. And on top of that, what we leverage on the local level helps leverage additional dollars at the state level, the matching portion of it. And so that really helps us kind of maximize our potential to tackle those important projects. So I'm in complete full support. So the question was, if it gets on the ballot, if it's going to reduce or...
Yeah, so when I was doing my research, it says that the surcharge would be reduced from 1.5% to 1%.
So currently the question on the ballot will be to the voters that the city council supported was as to whether or not they support reducing the surcharge from 1.5 to 1%. That's the question that's going on the ballot this November. I know there was an effort to put it on the ballot last local election. I had vetoed that, not because I didn't want my voters to participate in the democratic process, but because I knew in an already low voter turnout economy, I knew that more people come out. Historically, when you look at numbers and you compare them, more people come out during the state presidential. And, the state, the CPA is one of the few, if not the only question that they allow to go on their ballot. I thought it made more sense if we really cared about getting as much people as possible that we'd be intentional in when we present it so that we can get the most votes as possible to decide on this very important question. I mean, a reduction, it's going to limit the little bit of capacity it's already giving us. And certainly, we want to be sure that we maintain that. So, but it's going to be up to the will of the voters. Whatever's decided is obviously what we're going to support. But again, I fully endorse the not reducing the surcharge, and hope that the residents in my community will stand behind me and support this effort.
And then what can city government, aside from the police department, do to curb crime and violence in Holyoke? And obviously kind of an additional part of this is how does the police chief search kind of factor into this?
So, and this is a multi-answer, because when you're talking about quality of life issues that attract crime, it's not just policing. We have been stepping up efforts with our Board of Health, our building department, fire department, our local ordinance officer, and the DPW to tackle issues around blight that attract crime. And so we've been doing a full court press and trying to get property owners to take better care of just the basic quality of life things, whether if it's overgrowth, trash, graffiti. The building department is undergoing an initiative to get property owners to put their apartments in better repair than what it is. So these are the little things that we're doing to get things in order that offer a better quality of life and contribute to just a better mental health position for a lot of people. Then also you have policing for crime as it's happening. There's all sorts of preventions that are going on. Holyoke's not any stranger to leveraging any opportunity for work around intervention, but also compassion needs to go hand in hand with enforcement. When I first came in, we did the audit to try to understand a little bit in what is it we're doing well and where are we falling short that we can be better in our police department. That audit has revealed some findings that we've been actively pursuing or implementing so that we're closing that accountability gap. And certainly with whoever the new incoming chief is going to be, we want them to build on that, and with the goal with obviously providing quality services. But you asked me what the public can do, right? How the community can help.
more about like city government, like you kind of mentioned.
So in our local government, we're doing the basics, which is basic enforcement of the laws and the ordinances. Yeah. City of Holyoke for a very long time has been a little flexible to the point where accountability, there wasn't a lot of accountability at so many different levels. And so we ran a management campaign. I know I'm an elected mayor, but I try to focus less about the politics of what a hard decision will do to me and keep focus on the management, reducing liability, improving quality of life. And so sometimes, it's making decisions on things that are not popular, that are difficult for some people that might be used to doing things a certain way. And so really we've been tightening it up at City Hall to better enforce those quality of life issues. But what the community can do, the reality is local government, we can't depend on government to solve these problems. The community really needs to step up and demand the accountability they want in their neighborhoods. Not only holding their local government accountable, which is critical, and that keeps us on our toes to constantly be better and do better, and then also to support the initiatives that the government puts together that are often can be not popular, but also neighbors holding neighbors accountable too. And I find a lot of that. I find you got a lot of building owners, property owners, renters, folks that kind of have this it's not my problem mentality. You know what I mean? And it's not really it doesn't really help with building community pride, taking ownership, and really collaborating with the local government together to build the community that we're all looking for and deserve. So when you're talking about issues of crime, it's multifaceted. It's obviously in our schools, which is a whole other topic and challenge right there. You got a lot of kids that are going into their schools with whatever neighborhood challenges that they're going through, and you got to understand the 4 census tracts that make up downtown Holyoke. The median household income is less than $27,000. Holyoke's, and the quality of life challenges that exist because of poverty concentrated in segments of the city. And on top of that, our school district is number 3 in the whole state, with children enrolled in our school district that are experiencing some form of homelessness. More, now we're talking about per capita, more than our 3 largest metropolitan cities, Boston, Springfield, and Worcester. And that's largely because Holyoke, since as long as I've been growing up there, has been an extremely compassionate city. I've benefited from Holyoke's compassion. We were a vulnerable population when I was growing up, and I'm extremely thankful. But there's been an unintended consequence, and that unintended consequence being how do we continue our level of compassion, but make sure that families that are choosing to stay and live in Holyoke, that while they navigate their challenges, they have a good quality of life, right? They're not dealing with other problems that are contributing to their safety, their health concerns. So it's a very complicated issue. A lot of people do get divided on the subject, but obviously my administration we're deeply committed to acknowledging any and every concern and navigating the minefield, as I like to call it, as we try to get our act together and determine the path forward for our city.
Okay. And then last question, obviously a big topic in Holyoke is exiting receivership.
Yeah.
So how important is it as the city, how important is it to work out of the receivership, and how do you kind of plan to support that kind of exit? 2
important things that I want to make note about receivership. 1, receivership is not a bad thing. Receivership is often, whether we're talking about schools or a municipality, it's a tool leveraged when things are not going right. Things are a little bit out of control. And, it's a temporary measure the state uses to step in. When you're in receivership, the state government has a lot more flexibility to untangle issues and move things around than we would when it's under local control. So I think that on the interim, it was an important pivot that took place. I know it's a big debate on the argument. But what the other number 2 point of all of this is, even if that's an important mechanism tool, obviously it's got to be temporary, because nothing is better than the truest form of any local control. And and so municipalities exist, 351 cities and towns across the Commonwealth get to adopt the form of government of how they self-manage. And obviously in our community, we have an elected school board. Mayor is the chair. School board elected officials and the mayor elect their vice chair. And that school board appoints the superintendent of the schools. That's the form of government that we want to get back to be sure that power and control is always with people when it comes to public resources. But obviously, we want to do it responsibly. So I don't know how much you've been following, but we've had our meeting. Yep. We presented the capacity building plan for our school board. A lot of our board members weren't around when we were in local control. It is a big responsibility. Important decisions have to be made at the school board level that this school board might not be used to. And so there are clear benchmarks and strategies that we're going to that we need to hit so that we can then hit the ground running when the transfer of power is given from the state to our local government. And working with the commissioner, with this commissioner, has been a breath of fresh air. For a long time, constituents in Holyoke, stakeholders didn't feel like a partner in this, venture of receivership. And when this commissioner got appointed, he knew that it's never happened before. He didn't have the answers, but his response was, "Hey, look, we've never done this before. But you know what? We're going to work together and figure this out." And we were like, "Oh, okay, that's great." Yeah. So he himself has been coming to the table. The governor and the lieutenant governor has been very clear in their direction and what they want to see happen. And we're just at this point right now, we feel momentum, we feel progress, and are incredibly grateful for the commissioner and the state support for understanding our position and working with us to be better managers of school resources so that we can practice our truest form of democracy under local control. Did I answer your question? Sometimes I go off a rant.
That was a good
A lot of times,
response.
you get no matter what question you ask, and believe me, there's an answer for all of them, but they're not black and white.
Yeah.
So I try to break it down and keep it simple to get people to understand, it's a little more complex than what people think.
Yeah.
And again, that's just me leading through the lens of management. Obviously, my political mayor hat says local control belongs to us.
Yeah.
But obviously there's a responsibility to our obligation and fiduciary responsibility, as well as our obligation to enforce Mass General Law, local ordinances, best practices of the Department of Revenue. And when local government is not working together in keeping up with our obligation, then that's when you get dysfunction government. That's when you get chaos. And that's not a position any local government should be if you're really looking out for the interest of your community. So I'm happy to say that as passionate Holyoke gets with our city council and our school board, I could tell you that at the end of the day, when it's business and we need to come together and make it, my community, my local government comes together and takes care of business.
Sounds good. I think that's all we've got for you. Thanks for taking the time to sit
Thanks
down
for having
with us.
me.
Appreciate it. And that wraps another episode of So That Reminds Me.
Thanks for listening, and we'll be back again soon with another episode.
Thanks for listening to So That Reminds Me, produced by Western Massachusetts news source Reminder Publishing. Don't forget to subscribe to the podcast, find the latest news at thereminder.com, and follow Reminder Publishing on Instagram at Reminder Publishing, on X at The Reminder MA, and on Facebook. Reminder Publishing, we are hometown news.